Everybody ready? Ready?
Yeah.
All right, listen.
It's your weekend show.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
With Bob Biermann.
It's great.
And welcome to your weekend show. I'm your host, Bob Biermann. I'm so glad you're taking some time to spend it with me today. This program today is going to be a little bit different than some of the shows that I've done in recent months. For those that have been listening to your weekend show for, let's say, several months, maybe several years now, as we go into our third year, we begin our third year this month of March. This has been an incredible journey, a journey that has been, well, sometimes you wonder, does the program have any meaning? And then along the way, you get those replies and you hear from people in various places and you realize there is a purpose for your weekend show. I've come to conclude in recent weeks that many of the people that listen to this program are listening to this program on the medium of shortwave. I know there are a number of people that listen on domestic radio and many of them that listen on the internet. They may listen from the website or a number of various sites the program is posted each and every week. And I want to thank each and every one of you for taking the time from your busy schedule to spend this hour with me as we talk about things that I hope you find interesting, helpful, enlightening. I had an email from a listener. I get a number of emails during the week, but this one stood out. I'm not going to give the individual's name or location or what this person does, but it was a great encouragement for me in this work that I do each and every week, to know that somebody is out there on the other end of this microphone listening. I've had emails from all over the world, but this one was a great encouragement. The individual was indicating that today, with so many governments and even some private agencies pulling back on their use of shortwave, that it's harder and harder to find good programming that is broadcast internationally. I've recognized that for years, even 15, 20 years ago, as a person that from time to time has enjoyed listening to shortwave broadcasts from all over the world. I have noticed this trend as many of the Western governments scale back on their international programming and move all of their content to an online platform. And this individual pointed out, as he said, a very delicate structure, this online platform. How robust is this platform we call the internet? We have become more and more dependent upon it each and every day. In the Western world in particular, it started out years ago with just having basic online access, and then the idea of having email, a quicker way to write a letter without having to get a stamp and mailing it. Then came along the laptop, the first smartphones, the iPhone. And over these past 15 years in particular, we have moved so much of our life into the online domain. If you live in Europe, the United States, Canada, a number of other places in the world, how many of us do a lot of our banking and bill paying online? How many of us have become very dependent upon this device we call the smartphone that we carry with us? We become so connected to our jobs. We become so connected to news, information, and even social media that at times I believe, and I've been guilty of this myself, we get out of balance with our life. If you look at a teenager today, We showed this last week, and we talked about this last week on the program. How many of them have their faces buried in some kind of electronic device with earbuds in their ear, listening to their music, socializing with their friends, but all through this device in the palm of their hand? You can go to a bowling alley, you can go to a restaurant, you can go to a park, and young people gathered together are seldom talking to each other. Instead, they have their faces buried in this device that they are holding in their hand. The industry that produces these cell phones, the cell phone industry at large, have this idea of building not just a platform, but a society. They are beginning to develop a society that is connected online, that becomes such a need that it gravitates from being a luxury to some kind of a necessity equal to food and water. Many ministries, in particular, that come to mind that have scaled back on conventional radio, let alone shortwave, have scaled back on even television, and they're moving into these new online platforms. In the email that I received that I mentioned a moment ago, we talk about this delicate internet structure. You have a rock star, as the writer of this email said, die, and you have slowed down internet and crashes. How dependable is the internet? But most important, how controlled is the internet? This morning I stopped and had some breakfast before getting ready to do this program, to record it today. And I saw this fascinating article in a London newspaper that caught my attention. Are the devices we own spying on us? Let me say that again. Are the devices we own spying on us? Now, I want you to think for just a moment. I'm going to go back 15, 16 years ago when advertisers first started talking about their website. Visit us at soandso.com. A lot of people didn't pay it a whole lot of attention, but it was the beginning of a trend. It took time for it to catch on. And for the older generation, and I will admit that I'm a part of that older generation, many of us were, we adapted fairly well. Some of those that were older than us didn't adapt at all. But the generation that came behind us lives their entire life on the internet. Whether it's in chat rooms, whether it is Facebook or dozens of other similar type sites, the apps we have on our phone to do certain things, the content that we view. There's nothing wrong with ministries making use of this platform, because that is where so many people live today in the Western world. But even as I do the program today, I also recognize there are billions with a B that do not have the kind of internet access that I have where I live. For years, cable TV or even satellite TV was a vastly growing industry, but now we see in many parts of the world people cutting that expensive cord and going to enhanced internet service and buying devices like Amazon Prime, Roku, Hulu, and others to now access their video content on their TVs. The other day, I was in an electronics store, and you look at all these new television sets, and they are so different, not because they're flat screen, from the TVs of just a decade or two ago. And it's not just because they are high definition with a higher quality picture as compared to the old CRT or the tube type television. They've now become smart TVs that have all these apps already built in. You can connect an antenna if you'd like, or simply connect the TV set to the internet to gather your content. The internet is a wonderful place. It has a vast amount of knowledge for those that are willing to take the time to do the research and also be careful to sort out between fact and fiction. There's a lot of, well, the term they use today, fake news. There's a lot of fake news on the internet. It's not just the mainstream media at times that can give us slanted news. The internet is just a treasure trove of fake news. The internet also has a couple of other negative factors that deeply concern me, and I'm going to get back to this article that I read today. The internet can be filtered and controlled by governments. Who actually is in charge of the internet today, worldwide? And who is in charge in your nation? Do you believe the people in China, for example, have 100% unfiltered access to anything they want to see, view, and download and read? No, it is controlled. It is censored. I believe that even in free nations like the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, and others, may find the day when even their content is filtered for various politically correct reasons. There is such a change in our world, and that's something else we'll be talking about today on the program, that when you combine the societal changes and the control of the internet, we are setting ourselves up for the control of our content and information. I applaud the many ministries that are making use of the internet. I applaud reliable news outlets that have an online feed. But it's a very fragile feed at best because it is so easily controlled. You can be a content provider believing your content can be heard around the world, finding out you have been geo-fenced outside of certain locations. And I have to wonder, with this internet of ours, how much control will gradually take hold in the name of safety and security. That article talked about something else that I found rather alarming, of how various governments and agencies and who knows who can use the smart devices that we own to spy on us. Now, before you say you're a conspiracy theorist, let me just go back a step here. This is a legitimate article out of a news organization in London. It appears that many devices we have, our iPhones and our Android phones, can be susceptible to those that would hack, that can then use the microphone built into those devices and even turn the cameras on to see what we are doing. Some of the new smart TV sets have built-in video cameras you can be using for a chat or a conversation, that even when you think the TV set is turned off, can actually be turned on. There's something about electronics today that is so different than just 20 years ago. When you turned a device off, you, essentially cut the power entirely to that device. Today, everything is so computer-based that those computer chips are literally turned on all the time, even though the power light may be off. How does the system know from your remote control to turn on? The logic and control circuits are always active in smart devices as soon as power is applied. 1984 was a book by George Orwell. It came out years ago, back in the 1940s, predicting a day when government would be able to spy on people in order to have more control of their lives, to know when there is dissent in the ranks, and to take appropriate action. We live in a very changing world, and I wonder who has access to the data of our lives. For those of us in the Western world, how many of you have ever had your identity stolen? How many of you have ever had money taken out of a bank account by electronic means that you did not authorize? We are so used to now using credit cards, debit cards, and online purchases. We're constantly putting our information out there. That's millions, if not billions of us worldwide using our identity in an electronic world. It is only obvious that somebody with nefarious intent would take advantage of security breaches to access information. Getting back to that email that I received that gave me such great encouragement. I try to do a radio program each week that helps us in our journey in life. Sometimes I talk about relationships. Sometimes I talk about the hardships we face in life, the difficulties. I share the triumphs, the tragedies, all the aspects that make up the human experience is a vital part of your weekend show. And as a rule, I generally avoid politics because there's plenty of other voices and outlets to do that. But today, it's more about principles and information. You can let the politics fall where they may, that I want to share with you today. I remember back in the 1980s, I was working for a corporation that manufactured broadcast equipment, and it was getting close to the time that we were going to be heading to the National Association of Broadcasters convention in Las Vegas. And there was a song that was very popular at that time, and for some reason, this song from the 1980s just kind of came into my mind and made me think about those that try to control and run our lives. And for what purpose? Are there groups and people and organizations that are so bent on having power and control? Is this their goal and their personal mission in life? As I said, this song from the 1980s just kept haunting my mind as I thought about the things that I would like to share with you today about how everybody wants to rule the world. Tears for Fears from the 1980s and Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I want to welcome you back to your weekend show. I'm your host, Bob Biermann. I'm so glad you're with us today as we talk about these important aspects and things that affect our daily lives. This program does have a website. It does have a Facebook page. And here we are talking about some of the pitfalls and problems with the online world. The online world is truly a remarkable place. It does have a place. But as I said before, I'm watching governments and even ministries that are pulling away from conventional means of communication, traditional routes, and putting everything into this online village, this online society. And I have to wonder, what effect does living in this electronic world really have on our human persona and nature? That's why I do this program each week. Yeah, it's online, but it also is on shortwave, and it's important, I believe, that it remain on a medium that is not filtered, that is not as easily controlled or is easily geofenced or shut off. I told you before I had an email, and I want to share just a few lines from this email with you. I'm not going to identify the individual that wrote it, but it really struck a chord with me and got me thinking about the importance of doing a program like this each and every week. He writes, "There's so much less to hear on shortwave in these past years, but your program tonight literally jumped out at me as an exceptionally thoughtful, well-constructed, and highly produced program. In short, it was a very welcome surprise." And so this quick email is both to send my congratulations, but also to send my encouragement and my hope that you will be able to continue in this endeavor. Shortwave listening is almost, and he puts it in quotes, a mystical medium. With its ability for very long-range propagation, we often do not know where this signal can land and even end up. And every day it seems that quality broadcasting, real radio programming, is disappearing. And that's not just on shortwave. It's true in so many of the conventional radio stations in much of the Western world today. I'm adding that thought right there, that I can tell you that the cookie-cutter formats we see today from some of the larger corporations keep drifting to a smaller playlist and a lower common denominator. So he says, as programming is disappearing, as governments and privately held ministries more and more drink the Kool-Aid and pin all their hopes and dreams of reaching the world through a very fragile internet World Wide Web, which cannot seem to manage to even keep running smoothly when a pop star overdoses or when areas large and small are ravaged by weather and other natural phenomenon. Yet you are there. It may well be that you are not being revealed to in this life the full measurement and impact and message of hope that you're providing by shortwave. A broadcast studio can be a very lonely place. You must accept it in faith that listeners, many listeners, will come, and they will come to know and eagerly listen that you're there. Give it some time. Believe me, I know. God bless you, my friend, and he signs his name. I have felt that very thought on my heart and mind these past couple of months as I have tried to reassess the effort and the work and the proper mission and ministry of this particular radio program. It is true. A small radio studio like I am working in today is a lonely and very quiet place. I'm in a small building, and I'm the only one here today as I sit in this little studio in front of this microphone, just sharing from my heart to you the thoughts that are just running through my mind. There are so many ministries out there that are moving to the online because, number one, they don't have a bill at the end of the month for airtime on radio stations. They can be controllers of their own destiny, so to speak, by simply pushing out their content to an online world. Well, first, there are many voices out there online. Not just a dozen, not just 50 or 100, but thousands upon thousands of different voices online. And so the number of potential people you actually reach is diminished by the volume of content that is competing for those eyes and those ears. And language can also be a barrier. If people do not speak your language or can comprehend, they tend not to listen for very long. I have watched, as both an engineer and a broadcaster, the development of online internet radio, online content being moved into not just our smartphones and smart TVs, but we're seeing the trend to get into the automobiles. Before long, in many major cities, you'll be able to listen to your online content directly out of what used to be simply your car radio. The world truly is changing. And when you get there, to that online world, instead of finding 100 choices, you may find 100,000 choices. It makes getting your message a little more difficult to get above the floor of the noise. And as I said before, my concern with being online only is, as this writer of the email said, the fragile internet world. Its infrastructure is increasingly, every day, having higher demands. There is so much spectrum out there for Wi-Fi. People say, well, can't they use what we now know as the broadcast bands? Well, not necessarily. It doesn't exactly work that way. The demand will grow, and the vision of this global village and society is what drives these cell phone companies and providers to build a whole new world. I look at my life right now and how many things that I do in the online world that I've just gradually come to accept each and every day. If I need something in a hurry but don't have to have it today, I can simply go to Amazon.com and have it at my door in 1 or 2 days. This is the kind of world we're becoming more accustomed to being in. And one of the things that concerns me about the online world is it's a superficial world. And at times it is not a real world. There are people that get online with personas, names, and backgrounds that are not truly real. They become their own invention online to be something that they are not. The online world has its place. It has its purpose. And as I shared last week, sometimes I wonder, are we the master of our technology, or has our technology grown to the point that it's become our master and our ruler? And that's where we have to be so very careful. Technology can be a beneficial thing, but can also be a very dangerous thing when it's misused, like anything else in the world. And technology, I think, is oftentimes misused. I think of ministries that have moved to online only. I can think of a dozen or more that come to mind. And they've tried to ride this wave, so to speak, of technology and advancement for their purposes. Obviously, as I said before, it is far less expensive to be an online-only entity versus using more traditional means. But then you also put all your eggs in one very fragile basket. I have watched ministries, and one of the things we talk about from time to time are the changes and also from a more Christian perspective, what it all means toward the idea of eschatology or things of the end time. I have watched with great disdain ministries that try to ride the crest of that wave and try to use fear. They try to use fear to get you to respond to their message and to support them financially. I go back to just a couple of years ago, to the year of 2015, when this program first began. There were ministries, just dozens of them that I can think of off the top of my head, that were almost telling you that 2015 is going to be the year. This is going to be when it all changes, and the end could be here before you know it, or you might be going through the Great Tribulation before the election in the United States of 2016. I remember vividly well in the spring of 2015 listening to a radio program that had a gal on. I'm not going to identify who she was. She claimed to be a prophetess that could see into the future. The Lord was giving her visions and telling her to share these visions with people. And she said we only had until August, till the end of August and no later, to prepare, because if we didn't prepare by the end of the year of 2015, it would be too late. Time is going to run out. In 2015, we heard about blood moons, the Shemitah. Just go down the list of all these things that were going to happen in the world and how we needed to be prepared. We needed to be out buying stockpiles of non-perishable foods that would last on shelves for 5, 10, 25 years or more, to have generators and solar panels so we could ride out the tribulation and be safe. These ministries kept pumping out these stories, pumping out these guests, and asking for your donations and selling you the needed supplies to get you through these horrible and difficult times that were right around the corner. And how quickly, at the end of November of 2016, of course, none of these predictions from 2015 ever occurred. And all through 2016, in the Western world and the United States in particular, they focused on the November election as the watershed moment when everything would completely unravel. And then what they predicted again failed to materialize. And so they moved on, talking about the deep state. Yes, I've heard that term for 25 or more years about shadow governments and those that really want to have control. I get it. I understand it. These ministries built their empire by spreading fear. Yet Jesus himself says in the Bible, fear not. Fear not. Yet these ministries come to you asking you to be in fear and to buy their book and their DVD or download their video or buy these supplies so you will be in that special group that gets to go through all these bad times they are telling you about unscathed. Many of these same ministries, as we entered the year of 2017, are talking about this unprecedented reprieve and how it's now time to build for God's kingdom, and the end of the world is not exactly going to happen right now. We have been given some time. And so now it's time to change the focus, change the direction. Yet how many of these ministries have changed and changed and changed over 5, 10, 15, and upwards of 20 years as they tried to ride the crest of the wave of public perception for a personal gain and profit. That's the one thing this radio program will not do. I will share from you what I observe, and I will share with you the things that I see. I have a theory and a belief. It is not a vision. It is not some kind of prophecy. It is just using a little bit of common sense and understanding the human condition that you'll find anywhere on the face of the planet Earth. We are in a time in the Western world right now where all the signs will tell you for the moment there is going to be a period of economic prosperity. You're going to see prices of real estate and things go up, wages go up, construction, building. It's going to be a time economically that is going to be rather good for a while. But how long will that last? Will it last 3 months, 6 months, a year, 3 years? I don't know. And I'm not here to tell you that I know, because I don't. All I can detect and feel is a positive outlook economically, while at the same time the world becomes even more increasingly divided politically, socially, and even morally. Going back to the book 1984, the term that George Orwell used that is so profound was called New Speak. Let me say that again, New Speak. What things we think are right are now wrong, what's wrong is now right, what is up is down. Attitudes have got to change. It all began years ago when we first heard the term political correctness. That's another way of saying newspeak. We have to change the language and the vocabulary to change subtly the meaning. Things that were once an aberration, things that were once considered by the medical world, the psychology world as abnormal, is now being celebrated as simply just diverse and different. And all these little things, not one of these things in and of themselves is a game changer or a world changer, but combined, they divide us even further. Your weekend show, hopefully for you, is a voice of reason, a voice of logic, a voice of compassion, and yes, even a voice of hope. And tonight, or today, depending upon the time you're listening, and where this show is reaching, whether by the World Wide Web or on radio or around the world on shortwave, I don't know where it finds you at today, or what concerns you have on your mind and your heart today, the things you're struggling with today. I know that this year of 2017 is going to be a roller coaster ride for the Western world. A recent conference for the cell phone industry makes that concept of building a new digital society. A digital society, to me, is a vastly more controlled society, because when you have your life, your banking, your content, your information, everything about you Everything about you is connected into a device, almost like your soul is connected into an electronic world. It gives me some pause for thought. The world is more divided today than I think even during the Second World War, even during times 500 or 1,000 years ago. And we're being divided not just in one area of our lives, but in dozens of areas, dividing people and splitting up families. Our human sexuality is used as something to divide us. Our beliefs are being used to divide us. Our technology is the vehicle that controls us. In those words from Scripture that talk about the end times, there are essentially several thoughts about how you tie them together. I'm not going to tell you which one is correct and which one isn't. I've quoted on a number of occasions on this program the late Vance Havner, a great Baptist preacher, who was once asked about end-time eschatology. And they wanted to know if he was a pre-millennialist believing in the rapture, or a post-millennialist where the world got better, or an all-millennialist where things have already occurred in Revelation, or the spiritual this or that, all these thoughts about the end times. And Vance Havner, I guess he was probably in his 80s when he made the statement, said, I'm a pan-millennialist. It'll all pan out in the end. There's so many things about what the Bible teaches we cannot fully comprehend until we see these things play out before our very eyes. Jesus said you will know the time and you'll know the seasons, you'll have a feeling. But he also shares parables like the wise and the foolish virgins being ready for the bridegroom when he would arrive. Nobody knew when he would arrive, and some had extra oil with them to keep their lamps burning, others did not, and when their lamps ceased to function, they were busy trying to find oil for their lamps, and they missed the arrival of the bridegroom. The church as a whole, since the very first century, has preached one thing consistently, that we simply be ready. There's only so many things we can do to be ready. Is buying 25 years of non-perishable food to hide somewhere the best way to be prepared? Or is simply using common sense the best way to be prepared? Jesus says that he will care for you and meet you where you are. He will get you through. He will give you the guidance and the wisdom of those things you need to do to be prepared. You don't have to take out a second mortgage and buy stockpiles of food and ammunition or anything else to get through the days that will come. We should be more worried about the work of the kingdom than the work of simply protecting ourselves. I think ministries that are busy selling you things are definitely without a doubt in my mind leading you down the wrong path. The Bible says our Lord wants to find us busy in his work, and building your stockpile is not really his work. The truth is, to be ready for these end times or the difficult times that could come is not so much a huge stockpile. It's being ready in your spirit. It's being thoroughly committed unto His lordship and His leadership in your life. The early church never stockpiled tons of food and weapons. They laid up for themselves treasures in heaven, not treasures on earth. They believed in that first century that Jesus could come at any time. And we see historical accounts of small groups that would run off to the hills, and that was not what we were called to do. We are called to be His witness. We are called to be faithful. And most important, however it plays out when that time comes, we are called to simply be ready.
Life was filled with guns and war, and everyone got trampled on the floor. I wish we'd all been ready. Children died, the days grew cold. A piece of bread could buy a bag of gold. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind. A man and wife asleep in bed. She hears a noise and turns her head. He's gone. I wish we'd all been ready. Two men walking up a hill. One disappears and one's left standing still. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. The sun has come and you've been left behind. Life was filled with guns and war, and everyone got trampled on the floor. I wish we'd all been ready. Children died, the days grew cold. A piece of bread could buy a bag of gold. I wish we'd all been ready. There's no time to change your mind. How could you have been so blind? The Father spoke, the demons died. The sun has come and you've been left behind. You've been left behind. You've been left behind. You've been left behind. There's a story that is shared in the book of Acts from the Bible
about a magician by the name of Simon. And Simon was watching these disciples of Jesus and all the power of miracles that they possessed in their fingertips. He watched people being healed, demons being chased out of bodies. He watched the dead being raised. He saw miracle after miracle, and he went to the disciples and asked if he could buy, if he could purchase with money the power that these disciples possessed. And the reason that Simon the magician wanted this power was not to be a benefit to the people, but to make money, to make a profit, to become an important and well-recognized celebrity. As I listen to that song, You've Been Left Behind, regardless if you believe that being left behind is a good thing or a bad thing, depending upon how you view it, the time is going to come when God is going to separate his children from those that have rejected him. Now, why am I sharing this story about Simon? It is important for this reason. There are many people, and I think some well-intentioned, that use the power of the message of the gospel for a personal gain. They live in lavish lifestyles. They become self-important. They travel first class only because they believe that they now possess something that others do not have. They believe in their heart of hearts and in the depths of their mind that God only speaks to them. But the Bible also gives a number of warnings about a number of these people that are so deep into end-time prophecy and end-time preparations. I can think of people in the 20th century and even the 21st century that have tried to set dates and times and sold their books and their materials and their supplies, and those days came and went. Jesus said, be real careful. There'll be those out there saying, well, here's the Christ, or there's the Christ. Go over here, go over yonder. And they'll be wrong. You can listen to these preachers of end-time prophecy, end-time, what's going to happen, inside information only known to them. And I'm afraid that more times than not, they will end up being wrong and end up just taking money from your wallet. And you won't be any better off today than when you used that credit card or sent that check. What I'm telling you is to be ready for the end times when they do come, is to be in that relationship with Jesus Christ. I remember the apostles going past a very sick beggar who was begging for money, and Peter goes, silver and gold have I none, but this I have, this power to heal that individual. And he was told to rise up and take his bed. I think too many well-meaning Christians are trying to hedge their bet and prepare for end times. I don't think there's a whole lot we can really do to be prepared to be off the grid or independent. We have to have some trust in the lordship of Jesus Christ. I don't want you to be unprepared, but I don't want you living an illusion that you have prepared and you have nothing left to do. Salvation, God's love, and his ability to sustain you is a free gift that requires no payment to some ministry to have the stuff that you will need. The church is the mystical body of Christ on this earth, because the church's one foundation is Jesus Christ.
The church is one foundation, is Jesus Christ her Lord. She is his new creation by water and the word. From heaven he came and sought her to be his holy bride. With his own blood he bought her, and for her life he died. Elect from every nation, yet one o'er all the earth. Her charter of salvation, one Lord, one faith, one birth, one holy name she blesses, partake one holy food, and to one hope she presses, with every grace endued. Yet she on earth hath union with God the Three in One, and mystic sweet communion with those whose rest is won. Oh, happy ones and holy, Lord, give us grace that we, like them, the meek and lowly, on high may dwell with thee. Like them, the meek and lowly, on high may dwell with thee.
It's hard to believe another week has come and gone for your weekend show. Find us online at yourweekendshow.com. That's yourweekendshow.com. Or visit us on Facebook at Your Weekend Show. Until next week at the same time, this is Bob Biermann wishing God's greatest blessings upon you.